What if your darkest moments were actually preparing you to shine your brightest for others? Today, I sit down with Jacqueline Bernard, who owns River City Pizza. One of the main things that she wanted to create in her life was a place that her kids could have their first job. But her story is one of amazing triumph. She has walked through immense challenges and emerged on the other side a strong, faith-filled woman who is an absolute example of what's possible, even if you've been through the darkest of times. What if your struggles weren't meant to break you, but to build you into the person that God created you to be? So I think that it's really easy to think that really strong women were always really strong. And maybe part of your story is that in a lot of ways you have always been really strong. And you seeing your parents, I want you to share a little bit about what you saw your parents do for work and how they showed up in the world. And did you, growing up, see them feeling fulfilled in what they were doing for work?
Yeah, I mean, so my dad was a forester for Potlatch Corporation for like over 40 years. And he also had like a side consulting business where he would like look at people's forest land and, you know, tell them how to keep it healthy and sort of like what to do with it. And my dad was very well known in the industry. And so we would go places to like corporate stuff or like the company had a dinner or something and everybody knew like who my dad was. And then, oh, you're Jack Fagan's daughter? Like, yeah. Like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And so it's sort of like when I was a kid, I guess kind of went over my head. But then as an adult, he passed away almost 20 years ago now. But as I've grown up and gotten older, like it's super cool how he like moved the mark with things in his industry. And then my mom, she worked for U.S. senators when I was growing up, worked for U.S. senators. And we would go to these meetings and there would be like natural disasters in Orfino. I remember I was a kid and like the river like flooded and like these people's homes went into the river and floated down the river. And so she was like sort of the face of, you know, the senator for at that time in Orfino and like helping these people who literally lost everything. And FEMA is there. And at the time I had no clue what I was watching. But then looking back as an adult, you're like, wow, my mom really helped people at a really scary times of their lives and was able to help them, you know, get their lives put back together.
Yeah. So looking at like work, going into the work world, did you automatically pursue something that was meaningful or was it, I'm going to find a job and go from there?
So my dad was super frugal and a saver. And my mom, growing up, we did all the things and went all the places and got all the things that we wanted. I feel like I got that frugalness from my dad, though. I was like, I need a job. I just want to work so I can save money. You know, my first job was filing papers for somebody. And, you know, I didn't care what it was. I just wanted a job at that time. Then I did other things along the way. One of the things that I worked for a catering company for a couple of years when I was in high school, and she was so amazing. And I think that's sort of what sort of set the stage for knowing that I wanted to do something at least in the hospitality industry because food brings people together. Now doing pizza, it's like everybody loves pizza. You show up at a party with a stack of pizzas and like everybody just gets so excited. And so, we catered huge weddings and huge events, and I got to go out to her kitchen and help prep. And so I think that sort of doing that job sort of set the stage for wanting to do something in hospitality for sure. But yeah, I mean, I always wanted to do something that was more than just a job.
Well, how amazing. I feel that when we do something like that as women or as parents, and then we set the bar high for our children, if we show them there's a different way, they're so much more likely to also pursue something more meaningful and more fulfilling and more in line with how they want to spend their life. So also talk to your parents. When you left hospitality, was there a season and a period of time where you were ever doing something that felt unfulfilling?
I guess I've kind of mostly always run businesses. And there is like, I'm just an entrepreneur at heart. Like getting to build something into something bigger and better is very fulfilling for me. I enjoy the process. And even like with pizza, it's like we started out with one and then you double to two, but it's always changing. Pizza's always changing. Landscaping's always changing with employees. And I guess I've done that and sort of stayed in that for most of my adult life of running different types of businesses that I do enjoy just the process. But there is definitely something different about hospitality.
Right. And so just so the audience knows, you run 4 pizza, actual brick and mortar restaurants and a landscaping business. So you have your hands full. Yeah. I want to go for a little bit back in time, I guess. Did you go to school to run businesses? Did you have a college? So what kind of a degree do you have?
I have a communications degree, which I took, like, I have a business minor, so I took business classes.
How many business classes?
I think like 5, like accounting 101 and 102, and then economics and like some like business communication, organizational communication classes too.
Okay, so for the woman that's listening that did not go to college, but maybe is interested in running a business, how much did those classes actually make or break your ability to run a business?
I mean, I don't think that my degree did anything for me for running a business. It's a piece of paper. I think it says if you want to go get a job, basically you're telling the person that you want to be employed from, like, I have this level of commitment. You can start a business and run a business without having a college education 100%.
I think there's a lot of women, though, that have that limiting belief that I didn't go to college to run a business, therefore I don't have, like, speak to the woman that thinks that that is going to make or break them. How to teach that?
I mean, I love it when people ask me, hey, so how did you, like, what should I do? This is what I want to do. Like, what do you think I should do first? It's like the ultimate compliment to be asked those types of questions, where obviously we're running several successful businesses, and for somebody to come to me and ask me for my advice, like, I love to help people. I love to talk about that kind of stuff. Everything is so out there now on the internet of how to do everything, because it's obviously different state to state, right? You just have to figure it out. You have to be determined. If you want to do it, if you're determined and set and know what you want to go for, it's 100% achievable.
Absolutely. Was there ever a time where you felt disempowered? Because you sound so confident. You sound so strong. Was there ever a point that you felt that you were living in this version of you?
Yeah. I mean, I think we all go through times where you question yourself. You kind of asked me earlier, but like my lowest point, because I've been through some really sad times. Grace, who's now 11, when I was pregnant with her, was definitely like my saddest. And I was pregnant and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know where to go with my life. And I felt like everything was just on pause because I'm growing this baby. Like, I can't do anything else. I have to grow this baby. It's just day by day, like figuring out. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then, you know, I mean, Philip and I got together and he had landscaping. So I was like, okay, well, I can help him with that. I can do that. So I did that. And then I was like, well, then Grace was a couple of years old. And I'm like, well, I kind of need, like, what's something more? Like, I'm tired of just answering the phone and processing payroll. Like, I want something more. And so it just started like looking around, and then River City Pizza was just going to close. I was like, well, let's just go talk to them, see if they want to sell it. So we went in and they thought we were crazy, and we're like, no, let's do it. So he was like, okay. So we bought the one in Otis, and just from there have, grown. We have 4 now, but it's like, it's a every day waking up with intention of, okay, how can I move the mark today? Even if it's just tiny, even if it's just one thing of, moving the mark to make the business better or to grow the business. It's an everyday decision to wake up and make the next step.
Before you bought River City Pizza and you're home, you're being a mom, I just think so many conversations we've had like this where we talk about it's amazing to be a mom, and we are so grateful to be able to be at-home moms and to be able to be the caregivers. But there's also this part of us that means more. So where were you at then that you knew, okay, I've got to find something more? What was that time like?
I mean, it is unsettling, right? And I am not a patient person. So I was like really antsy to find something. But I also like
Simply looking for hospitality, or
no, I mean, kind of. I was kind of like we looked at coffee shops, we looked at full restaurants, we looked at all kinds of different things. And mostly, yes, we're in the house. I think we looked at a tanning salon once, but I was like, no. But yeah, most of the things were in hospitality. One thing that I knew that I didn't want, like I didn't want to just buy a job, right? I didn't want to just buy something that was going to take up my time. I wanted to get involved with something that I could be proud of. What I really wanted was to find something that, because my big kids were like, I think Cody was, well, in 2016, Cody was 16. When we bought the pizza place, he was 16. I wanted a place to give my kids their first job. And what more fun place than to have your first job be at a pizza place?
so why was that so important to you?
Just wanted to be part of like my legacy, like being able to provide that for my kids, and not just my kids, but like being able to provide kids their first job, young adults their first job, and in an environment that's fun, and they get to work with their friends, but they're also expected to work, and they have to answer the phone, and they have to do the dishes, and they have to sweep the floor. They're learning things that they get to take with them for the rest of their lives. And you're learning communication with your coworkers, and you're learning like those are jobs that those are things that you're not going to learn at every job. Minimum wage is $16.66 an hour, but you get tips. I mean, like if you are good with your money, like you can save, you're living with your parents, take advantage of the situation and save your money. And it's providing an opportunity for people, for young adults to really have a good first job. And that's fun. And they get to learn a lot of really cool experiences too.
My first job was a waitress. So actually, a hostess. It started as a hostess and then moved up to being a waitress. And I think everyone should spend some time in that job. I say the same thing. You'll be a lot more patient when you're on the other side. Yes. And you'll give so much more grace to your waitress.
Well, I always say because you deal with bad situations and customers get like if getting a pizza with black olives on it instead of no black olives is making you this upset, clearly you have a lot of other things going on. But one thing for sure is you've never had a job like this. Yeah. Like you've never worked a Friday night dinner rush ever, and it is showing right now.
It's very apparent. Yes. And you need to go have at least 6 months experience in this. I have never, until talking to you, thought about how you could be the one giving your children that experience, and speak to what that means to you now being you. I'm assuming your older children have all worked for you.
Yep. All in different capacities too. Alicia, my oldest daughter, she's 24 now. She was a store manager for my Valley location. And then she became, at the time, we only had 3 stores, but she was like my general manager for all 3 locations. I mean, so she worked at the biggest capacity. Cody's the oldest. He worked, for years, even like in transition. Hey, like, I just quit my job. Can I just pick up a couple shifts at the pizza place? Like, of course. So he worked a lot when he was younger, and then sort of off and on, and he's moved on to bigger and better things now. And same with Alicia, but she was, I mean, like my right hand for several years. Like it was a lot. And then Nick, who's 19, he started when he was 16, and worked for like 2.5 years. And then when he graduated from high school and turned 18, he moved over to Seattle to be with my sister, but he worked for a lot. And I mean, he is like, I talked earlier about how my dad was frugal and I'm super frugal, and he definitely has that trait. I mean, but he worked as hard as he could, as many hours as he could. He had $20,000 saved.
Wow.
After 2.5 years of working at the pizza place, just by saving his money and, being good with it. And just if you just go work a minimum wage job, that opportunity is just not there, because you're not going to make that much money. When you're good at your job, and the better you are at your job, the bigger tips you get. That speaks to some people. So
yeah, I think I had done the math. I think it's been 20 years probably. That's how old I am. from when I was doing that. And I think at that time I was making like $23 an hour. So
Yeah.
think about that. $23 an hour 20 years ago was maybe minimum wage. It taught me so much in communication skills. It taught me how to connect with people in a very short amount of time. It taught me how to provide quality service that then I made more. Like it taught me that aspect of life. The better you do at something, in some, obviously there's some jobs that that's not going to happen, but in the waiting tables, waitress, waiter job, you learn the better service you provide, the more income you can make. And there are lots of ways that that can translate into business later on. So talk a little bit about, you said earlier that you love it when people ask you, like, where should they get started? When you decided to pursue River City Pizza, had you had any pizza background at that point? Or was that?
No, I'd never even worked in a restaurant. So in high school, I'd worked for that caterer. Her name's Debbie Rep. And I still every once in a while reach out and I'm like, this is all because of you. Because she just like instilled that she was, I mean, talk about a hardworking person. And catering is hard because you have to cook it and then you have to move it and then you have to make it look pretty and you have to make it taste good. And it's traveled 100 miles, you know? So when we bought the pizza place, so we bought it from a guy whose mom and sister ran it. And then the sister stayed for a year because I didn't know anything about pizza. And she had worked there forever. I mean, he owned it for 20 years. So she stayed for a year and I learned a ton from her. But not like the business side. Like I had the business side down, all of the payroll and taxes and licensing and all that kind of stuff. But then when it came,
figure that out though. So was that from previous business experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Previous businesses. And then just, I mean, honestly, you just have to learn as you go. Like you have to sort of embrace that you're going to start and you're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know it all. But as you go, you have to learn and talk to the right people and make the right connections. I am one though, like it's sort of just in my personality that I'm fine with that. Like I'll just figure it out. Like nothing's too hard. I can figure it out. A lot of people don't have that.
What life experiences do you feel like produced that in you?
I mean, my parents are both like that, I guess. Just go for it. You're going to make mistakes and how you respond to those mistakes and, you know, adversity that comes your way is like just as much. Failing just shows that you're trying. So how you respond to the failures and how you recover and bounce back from the failures says so much about you and who you are. I think part of it's just growing up. Like I played a lot of sports too. So I think, you know, just going for it has always just sort of been in my nature, I guess.
Oh, we are kindred spirits. That's totally me. I'm a wing it person.
Fake it till you make it.
Well, talk a little bit about what failures. Did you have failures? I'm assuming you had. I know you had to have.
I mean, like specifically with pizza?
Yeah, in running the pizza business.
Yeah, I mean, you hire somebody and they work a shift and you're like, why? Why did I do that? So, you know, working through things like that. I mean, you have upset customers. You have to figure out, you know, it's all in smoothing it over and making them happy, making a customer happy. Your employees are always watching you and how you handle situations. I mean, and handling situations with as much like grace and understanding as possible. And sometimes like there's just crappy people that just want free food, you know, and you have to be able to recognize that and handle those situations a certain way as well. There's been times, you know, like our first catering event, it's like it never goes how you know, anticipate it to go. So you just have to be, you know, it's all going to work out and you get the food out as fast as you can and make people happy as best you can. And I mean, other failures, like, I mean, we started a location out in Newman Lake and only had it for a season. And then like, it wasn't a failure, but you know, it's like you started it and then ownership of the marina changed so that they didn't want it. So we didn't get the opportunity to do it again. But it's sort of like taking those opportunities that you're handed at the time and making the best of them and learning from that.
So I'm assuming when you bought the original River City Pizza, you had no idea you were going to expand like you have.
No, not in the beginning anyway. Because the guy that owned it before, that was always his plan, was to open more. And he had the one in Otis for 20 years and hadn't opened another one.
Was that because he wasn't able to make it profitable enough to expand?
I don't know exactly why he chose not to. What he did do is, so right now we're just takeout and delivery. Like, we don't have a sit down restaurant. So he had that, and that was his, how he had his business set up in the beginning for about 15 years. And then the last 5 years that he had it, he actually opened up a sit down restaurant. And then he had brought on a partner at that time. And so that didn't go great. And he ended up having to buy him out. And so then I think that he was just exhausted. It was just too much. So then when we bought it, he had the dine-in open. But when we bought it, we shut the dine-in down and went back to the original concept of just takeout and delivery.
Why did you decide to do that? What made you think that was the better path business-wise?
He said if I had to do it again, I never would have opened the dine-in. So that's where I was like, and it was huge. It was like 3 times the space of just the takeout and delivery space. So the rent was super expensive. The overhead, like the number of people that you had to have on staff to have that space open was double. So he was like, if I had to do it again, this is what I would do. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds good. So let's just do that. Because, I mean, it's simple. It's a kitchen. There's like most of it. I mean, customers sit in like a quarter of the customers, are able to see a quarter of our whole space in all 4 locations. There's no beer. There's no alcohol. There's no sit down. You don't have to have waitresses. You just, you can run it with 2 people most of the time, except for, your dinner rush where you obviously have to have more staff. But I think because it's so simple, that's why we've been able to replicate it so easily. It's like we have a perfectly well-oiled machine and we've just basically copy and pasted it 3 times. So
do you plan to expand further?
Yeah, we do.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So going back to, I want to talk a little bit about when you're talking about dealing with customers that are unhappy and understanding how to navigate those things. Is that something that you learned just being a waitress in experience, or was that something that you, like when you say you can find out anything, you can learn anything on Google, literally. But yeah, were there books? Was there programs? Or was that just all experience that you've learned how to navigate those things?
I mean, every single situation is different too, because you're dealing with a different person on the other end. I think that it all just comes down to, okay, I'm a reasonable person. How would I want to be treated when this is the scenario? I got a pizza and all the toppings slid off because obviously the delivery driver tipped the bag. So how can I fix that for you? Just treating people with dignity and respect. And it doesn't always go the way you want it to. Of course, I don't want to make it sound like, all you have to do is just give away free pizza. That's not what I'm saying. It's the way that you talk to them. It's the way that I basically just, okay, I want this bad experience to convert this person into a River City pizza person for life. And I have this opportunity. I can take this bad situation and turn it into good. How can I do that? If I was them, how would I want to be treated? And just, that's always how I start.
Mm-hmm. Customers always right.
And it's like, sometimes they're not. And so how do you navigate those? But a lot of it is like handling those situations. And of course, it always happens in the middle of a dinner rush on a Friday night when things are crazy and you mess up. But also conveying to my staff, like, this is how we treat people. We want to make it right. And how can we do that reasonably? I've read so many business books and, self-growth books. And you take little snippets from all of them. And obviously there's great ones out there. I don't have like one that's like, was this life-altering book that I read? But I have taken snippets from all of them and applied them in different situations. But customer service is sort of one of those things that it's like you have to be genuine in wanting to make this person happy. I always say, like, my hope is that every single person, every single customer that orders from me gets exactly what they want, exactly when they want it. And that's obviously not reality. Like, mistakes happen and things are late or early or whatever. But, you know, how recovering from those and making it right for the customer is the most important thing.
A happy customer will probably tell 3 people about their experience. An unhappy customer will tell 11 people about their experience. So it's so important to make sure.
But I also think an unhappy customer that you are able to make it right with, for that person anyway, can really, like, they'll never go anywhere else if you can figure out how to make it right when they've had a bad experience.
When you're talking about, like, having so much grace for people and seeing them, like when you mentioned the person that is so upset about having olives on their pizza when they didn't want olives, and you're thinking you have way bigger problems, where do you feel that compassion has come from?
I mean, like, my faith, like, I'm a Christ follower, and I think that's where it comes from. I mean, at the end of the day, I make pizza, right? And I pay landscaping employees, but my hope is that in doing those things that, you know, I can be a light and that I can show people, like, my heart. Like, and people go through hard things and they have bad days. And so it's like, obviously this person is super upset about way more bigger things than just the black olives that are on their pizza. And I don't know what they're going through, and I don't know what their day has been like, but clearly it was not good. And so, you know, responding to them in as loving way as possible. Hopefully that'll, you know, maybe it can turn their day around.
I think the people that have the most empathy and compassion for people are people that have been through the darkest moments. So for you, was there times where you had that day, like, where anything could set you off?
Yeah. People can only take so much, you know, and you're going through something that's so hard and sad and heavy that we all have breaking points, you know? So yeah, I mean, there's been times in my life that, I mean, you feel alone and just at the end of your rope, and you don't know what to do. So yeah, for sure.
You mentioned earlier that your dad passed.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when he passed?
I was 22.
So young.
Yeah.
How did he pass?
So what took his life was lung cancer. My dad he smoked his whole life. But he had Alzheimer's. So it was sort of this, like, slow decline. And at first we're like, what is wrong with him? Like, why is he being so weird? But then it was like, okay, something's actually wrong. So he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then it's hard to watch somebody that's so independent and so, like, passionate about what they do. And then he couldn't drive, you know, and it's like taking that kind of freedom from somebody. It's heartbreaking to watch that happen, to take that from somebody, especially somebody like your own parent who is, like, an authority figure in your life. And then you're like, well, you can't drive. Like I have to, like, who are you to tell him that he can't drive? So those were hard. Like, seeing him slowly decline was hard. And my dad's 24 years older than my mom. So they had a huge age gap. So when my dad passed away, he was 80, like 86, 87.
I guess there's probably a part of you that was, I don't know, so insensitive to think, I don't know how to say it. Like, you think, oh, he's lived a full life. But did you still feel like, even though he has lived a full life, if he's lived that long and fulfilled life, you still felt like he had life taken away from him?
With certain aspects of it, yeah, like as time went on. I mean, and towards the end, it's like, you're saying it's insensitive, but it's reality. Like, it's like, towards the end, his quality of life was so low that it's like, he would not, if he was all there, he would not have wanted to live this way. I mean, I know that for a fact. So it's like, when the time came when he passed away, like my mom and I, it was just like I think it was a Saturday, and my mom and I were both home, and like we both knew it was crazy. It was like we both knew that it was about to happen. And so we kind of like looked at each other and we went in there, and we were both sitting there with him when it happened. And it's like this huge sense of relief because he doesn't have to live in this pain anymore. Like, he's not comfortable. So I haven't talked about this for a long time.
Well, and he wasn't the person that you remembered from 10 years
ago. No, not at all. But it's like you have this sense of relief, but at the same time, you're like, oh my gosh, it's over now and he's gone. Your whole days were sort of just like revolved around making sure he was like at least comfortable, or trying to make sure he is comfortable. And then when it's like it's over and he's gone, you're like, it was just like a crazy like mindset shift of changing everything sort of about your day. But it's like a huge relief because he's in a better place, but still like he's gone, and so it's sad.
One thing that I know just in different scenarios and experiences that I've had and family members and friends have had, did you have a feeling of guilt over the fact that you had a feeling of relief?
Yes, absolutely.
Weird.
Yes, it's so weird. It's like I feel relief, but I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I'm a horrible person for that. But I think that sort of that same feeling translates into so many different areas of your life. I think where, especially nowadays, where we're pulled in so many different directions. It's okay. It's also okay. Like, he wasn't living how he would have wanted to live. So he's in a better place.
Right.
I think, thankfully, in like my dad's later years, he also became a Christ follower. He was like avidly not. He was like,
what happened? What led him to that?
My sister and I started to go to a private school when I was going into 7th grade and my sister was going into 8th grade. And we became friends with some of the people that it was a private, like non-denominational Christian school. But some of our friends were like really strong believers, and his name is Patch Blakey, and he was just like dead set on getting my dad to believe in God. And so he would take him out, and we had a couple of other friends. Dave Casebolt was somebody else that my dad like really became friends with, and they wore him down. So
did your dad share that wearing down experience with you, or did you just witness it?
I think I just witnessed it. I don't think he never really like shared that with me. Yeah, it definitely was like night and day though. Like one day he's like, okay, yeah, I believe that.
Really?
Yeah.
And how was he before?
I mean, he was I don't think much changed about like his personality when he became a Christ follower. Like he was more tender. I mean, my dad was kind of a gruffy guy always. And so that didn't really ever change. But yeah, I mean, he just was very avid. Like, I don't believe in God. Like, that's not real. But then I think too, like with being a forester too, like he got to witness and see beautiful, amazing things. And I think like over time, it just sort of clicked with him that it was like, okay, there's more out there. Like God did this. So,
I can absolutely imagine being in nature would definitely speak to that.
Yes.
So were you a Christ follower before him, or was...
Yeah, I mean, like when I grew up, my mom, like we always went to the Catholic church. I don't know that I would ever say that I was Catholic, but that's where we attended church as a kid. And like I always like believed in Jesus and everything. But then when we started going to that private school, that's sort of where I learned more about like being a Christ follower and about we took Bible. I had a Bible class. So it's like every year, from 7th grade and I graduated, we had Bible classes. And then here in Spokane, we go to a church called One. And I feel like at One is sort of where I really was able to develop like my relationship with Jesus. I was an adult at that to go, and we still go there now. Like Philip and I go there with the girls. So
has there ever been a point where your faith was rocked? or tested?
Yeah, I mean, I think after I had Grace, there was a time where I was pretty bitter and really mad
At God.
and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just at some of the things that I had to walk through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that I would ever say that I didn't believe, but definitely a time where I wasn't going to church and really didn't have many relationships with other Christians and just kind of, I was mad. I was mad for a while.
For how long?
Probably a year.
Like, what were the stories that you were telling yourself about who God is, or what did you believe about what you were walking through?
I was in survival mode where I just like, I don't know that I even got that far. Was just trying to get through the day without, blowing up at somebody.
What was it that you were walking through that changed everything for you? Like, prior to that year, you felt like you were in a good place. And then in this year time period, what transition were you going through, or what was happening in your world was so different?
I think that, well, I'll just be 100% honest with you here. I think that for a long time, I just became numb to a lot of the things around me. After Grace was born and after he left, it was like, I have to do something else. I cannot continue to let this pain be inflicted on me and my kids. So staying firm and not going back was really hard. It was almost like I had to stay in that anger space to not go back.
And I feel like, almost like as a believer, do you almost feel like that was God's way of, I don't know, protecting you?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then it was almost like that was like part of the game. Like, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make you beg me to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And when that didn't
worked before.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then when that didn't work, then it flipped to the begging, like just to tear me down enough to like want to go back. So it was like I had to stay in this space of just being mad to not let any tenderness take over. Because if I did, then I would have.
So after that year of struggling with, I don't want to say struggling, but being in so much pain and anger, what sparked a change for you?
Getting together with Philip, and we started dating around that time. He has this like calming nature about him. Like, we're basically the opposite. Like, I'm not calm.
That's by design. Yeah. Also, I am just like forge on, go for it, 100 miles an hour all the time. And he just brings this to me. I just told this story a few weeks ago. I would just freak out over everything. Like, just everything was a huge deal. He would always say, it's going to be okay. And when we first got together, that was the most annoying thing ever. Like, stop telling me everything's going to be okay. Stop it. It's true. It's so true. Like, it's going to be okay. And like, we're going to get through it because we have each other. And like, we're going to be fine. It was not an overnight thing. Like, this took years, for me to calm down and like just on the inside, not just being rattled all the time. So yeah, he helped me a lot. That totally speaks to the olive person, the person with olives on their pizza. You're like, I see you. I know what it's like to feel like every little thing means the world's falling apart.
Yeah,
because I've been there.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, when we're in cycles of turmoil, we almost get addicted to that pattern.
Yes.
And that feeling.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Feels comfortable.
Yeah. Well, and then when you feel, then you're like, oh, great, what's going to happen next? Like, you finally sort of feel in this like good space and you're like, okay, what storm's coming next? What storm's brewing next? Mm-hmm. But yeah, just breathing in that and taking it in and being grateful and thankful when, things are good.
So was Philip a Christ follower when you met him?
Yeah. Yeah,
his faith quite a bit stronger than yours at that point.
probably. Yeah. I mean, that guy can recite the Bible. So,
And he probably has his own stories of and experiences that I think most graceful people are the people that needed the most grace
yes.
at some point. So talk to me a little bit about how that translates into how you show up. I think it's amazing how much of your life it sounds like you've created versus there must have been a time, obviously, that happened maybe even before that year where you didn't feel like you were creating. Not that I don't believe we're the full authors of our life above God, but we are taking action every day to create the thoughts that we think and the actions that we take to create the life that we want to live. And you're doing that now. So,
Well, I think like being intentional every day, there's like, especially now, there are so many we're distracted constantly. I mean, you can waste a whole day just scrolling, you know? And so not allowing yourself to do that or anything else. I mean, we've talked a little bit, our job isn't who we are, but we're able to affect a lot of people by the work that we do.
yeah.
And like, don't take that lightly. Like, you have opportunities to change people's lives by how you treat them, by how you talk to them, by how you make them feel. People aren't ever going to remember the words that you said, but they are always going to remember how you made them feel. And that is a really heavy responsibility that we carry. The more we have, the more, and yeah, again, it's just making pizza, but we get to have an effect on people's lives. And that's so important to live that intentionally every single day.
That is amazing. So beautifully said. It's amazing to me how I think you're right in that we have that. It's a heavy feeling, and yet it's also a gift that we can you and it's both. And I'm the firm believer that there's no like right and wrong. It's and or like both things can coexist. And for sure. There's so many situations in life where multiple things can be true at the same time. But it's amazing to think that the woman that's listening, thinking, who am I? What difference can I make in the world? What can I do? You can make that difference in any way that you show up in the world in a business. We can absolutely make that difference every single day for somebody. What would you say to the woman that's listening that is feeling like, I think I'm made for more? I know I'm made for more, but how do I find the courage to figure out what that is and then walk it out?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, of course, it's different for every person. I mean, and it changes in the different seasons of our lives. You know, I mean, whether you're a mom or it doesn't have to be some miraculous or life altering thing to find your purpose. And I think that even in the little things, just starting out with recognizing and realizing that your life is affecting people every day and taking baby steps of finding what you enjoy, finding what fills your cup, and just doing more of that every day. Little things. It can be tiny things. And I think it's hard when you don't know. Like, I definitely have been there. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sure. I have no idea. But I know that these are my gifts and these are my talents. And so I'm just going to go look for it. Literally driving around looking for what I'm supposed to do next. No one's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to do it for you. So, you know, find what lights that little fire inside of yourself, and, you know, surrounding yourself with other like-minded people that have the same drive and fire for life, I think is huge. You know, hang out with the people that you want to be like. Be friends. Pick their brains. Find those people that you want to, their life is what you want your life to be, go hang out with them. Go figure out how to become friends with them.
Yeah, and not by social media. Like,
No. No.
How it looks on social media might not be the whole picture. Probably isn't. But in real life. And I think that's one of the things that is so cool about hearing your story, especially, is that you can be that for other people in the way you show up in the world. You can borrow Jacqueline's confidence, right? And then go out and pursue something you're passionate about. But then you get to be that person that someone else sees and thinks, I want to live more fully. I want to pursue something that I'm passionate about. I want to impact people's lives. I want to show up and change people's lives because I saw you do it and you do it. And it's an amazing, again, heaviness and empowering feeling to know that anyone can make a difference in the world.
Yeah, I think that, and then it becomes sort of contagious, even contagious to yourself. You're like, oh my gosh, I helped her. She saw something I did and she wanted to be like me. That is the coolest thing ever. And so then you just want to show up more. You want to do more and make that same impact on other people.
We are connected because you did that for a friend of mine. You have been that light for our friend Gina. And that's literally the reason we're talking, is because the way you show up in the world, you're the strongest woman she knows. Because of Jacqueline and the way Jacqueline shows up, you've inspired her to show up as her best self, the best version of who she is. So amazing, amazing example of what life can be like. And thank you for being amazing. It's so fun to be able to talk to you and to get to know you.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear your story. And it's again, like, I would not be talking to you right now if you didn't have the courage to walk this path. Because if you hadn't had the courage, you wouldn't have inspired Gina. She never would have told me about you. Like, that's the only reason we're connected, is because you've had the courage to walk it out.
Gina has said this several times. Like, when I met you, I was like, I want some of what she's got. And when somebody that's as amazing person as she is,
that speaks a lot.
You're like, okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So,
well, she's pretty spectacular. So
she is amazing. She is like one of the most amazing women that I know also, because she's just a light in the world.
Oh my gosh.
Well, she exudes joy in every way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And for people in the Spokane area, where can they go? I know you have 4 locations for River City Pizza.
Yeah. So we have Otis Orchard, Spokane Valley, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene. And our website's just rivercitypizza.com, and all the information's on there too.
Awesome. Okay. And then I know that you don't really run the landscaping business, but
it's cutting edge landscaping. Yep. So we do like pretty much all over Spokane, Liberty Lake, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene too.
And you cater weddings, so that's super cool.
Yes.
And you're expanding into, what's the next area you plan to expand?
I don't know. We're probably done in Idaho for pizza. We'll probably do deeper into the valley is probably our next spot for pizza.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to come visit one of your pizza. I know I did. It's been a while. Just because I think you need to open one in Cheney.
Well, the one in the valley, there's a brewery next door and there's a patio. So that's the best one. So we should meet there. And I'll bring Gina.
Okay. You'll be awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. Have an awesome day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.